And welcome back. We're here at Prep Recruiting Insider, PRI, at NOLA Motorsports Park in Avondale. I'm your coach of PRI, Rick Daly, along with our insider, Renee Nato. And we're joined once again by Rod West, the Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer of Energy. God, that's a long title, Rod. But welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks as always for having me.
Rod, recruiting. How was it for you? And kind of tag on that story. You and Ward Manuel, who's now the athletic director at Michigan, you kind of went to the same schools together recruiting. Why was Notre Dame a good fit for you, and how tough was it?
You know, coming up at Brother Martin High School, you know, as an all-boys Catholic school, Notre Dame wound up being a great fit. And Lou Holtz had just taken the job. This is the winter of 1985 into 86. Ward Manuel and I, along with Leroy Horde, Michael Stonebreaker, we were local blue chip prospects, and took the Notre Dame trip. Ward Manuel and I did, and my version of the story is we both committed to Lou Holtz to go play for the Fighting Irish at Notre Dame. We come back to school. Ward and I drove to school together each morning, and the kids, as we were entering school, the fellow students were telling us that Bo Schembechler, who was then a legendary coach at Michigan, that Bo Schembechler was waiting for us in Coach Conlon's office, Bob Conlon at Brother Martin. I told Ward, since we've committed to Lou Holtz, I'm not going to go. Much respect to Bo at Michigan, but I'm going to Notre Dame, as did you commit. I'm going to class. So I walked around the other end of the building and went back to class, which was physics, by the way. And Ward went in to see Bo Schembechler. Now, I drove to school with Ward every day, and if Ward is watching this, he'll know I'm telling the truth. I didn't see Ward for 2 days after that. And the next time I see him, he's sporting proudly a Michigan sweatshirt. That's how I found out that my best friend had turned tail on me and decided to go to Ann Arbor instead of South Bend, Indiana. But Ward just accepted, for those who don't know, Ward Manuel, a New Orleanian who grew up in the Gentilly area of the city and attended Brother Martin with me. Ward is now the athletic director at the University of Michigan, and we couldn't be more proud of him.
Absolutely. First of all, that's some legendary coaches that you're talking about on all sides of it, and what a great honor for Ward to now be the AD at Michigan. Maybe he could straighten that thing out. I'm interested in how he's going to have a relationship with Jim Harbaugh. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, and the one thing, you know, Ward and I would remain the best of friends, and Ward won the Big Ten championship and rubbed it in my face. But the one thing he will never be able to do is to hold up a national championship ring like the one I'm wearing right now, that I am again 30 years later rubbing in his face. But no, he has a tough job, and the tough job is raising the level of expectation when you have someone like Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. But here's the thing, Jim Harbaugh was Ward's quarterback his freshman year at Michigan. They actually played together, so I have no doubt he'll do wonderfully. Ward was in town 2 weeks ago. He's leaving University of Connecticut to take the Michigan job, and he was in town with the Connecticut women's basketball team who were going to play Tulane, and had an opportunity to visit with he and Coach Gino and the staff. And obviously he's done a great job at Connecticut, because they're definitely going to miss him.
In 1988 at Notre Dame, you guys won a national championship beating West Virginia. In '89, you wind up being second in the nation. Tim Brown, Heisman Trophy winner. The landscape of college football, you're very involved in that, Ron. Yeah. The landscape of college football has changed quite a bit since 1988-89.
Right. You know, I came on to Brother Martin in '86, and that was right before the NCAA changed the rules on how alumni could make contact with the athletes. And here we are 30 years later, and the landscape has changed rather dramatically. The one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that when these students are recruited to a college to play sports, the opportunity to actually receive an education is there. I know for a fact that the money and the lure of going on to play professional sports is tremendous, but I encourage those students to know the math. And the fact of the matter is, probably less than 1% of student athletes who go on and play in college actually go on to play professional sports. And what remains when the cheering stops, when the lights are off in the stadium, what remains is the academic progress that student was able to make. And if I could leave any message with any recruit who's being recruited from football, basketball, tiddlywinks to track, I don't care. If you have an opportunity to go and receive an education, take every chance you have to actually make that educational opportunity real. Because you never want to look into the eyes of the man or the woman you could have been if you had simply decided to take school seriously. And eligibility is not and should not be a major.
That's right. Make excellence a habit. If you're going to do something, go ahead and excel at it.
That's right.
You know, it becomes, just like we talked in the beginning, do your best because that's what's expected of you. That's
right.
what winners do. Something that you've been involved in is presentations for Super Bowls several times, and now we're seeing on the collegiate landscape the bidding for the playoff games. Talk about how that maybe started out a little bit different, but now there's not much difference at all.
Well, when you think about cities competing for Super Bowls, everyone knows how big the Super Bowl is. I call it the circus coming to town. And there's more than a week of activities associated with the Super Bowl in a specific city. And there's literally years of preparation to prepare for a Super Bowl coming to town. Well, in college sports, now that we have this 4-team playoff, the championship game is much like a Super Bowl. And in years past, when I was coming out of high school, the bowls, Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Orange Bowl, the bowls were in control of who came, to a certain extent, to who came to their bowl game. Well now, because of the way the playoff system is set up, the bowls now have to compete in the same way that cities competed for Super Bowls. The bowls have to compete for championship games. And so it's creating an entirely different landscape for the business of sport. And for those who have an interest in actual business of sport, pay attention to the economic impact of events coming to your town. After every major event, whether it's a Super Bowl or Final Four, look in the newspapers for some report that's usually an economist who will say the Super Bowl had a $400 million economic impact on our city. It's all about bringing resources to the city. That's why you compete, not just to say you had a Super Bowl come to New Orleans, but because of the economic impact of bringing the nation's eyes on our city, creates jobs and helps the community.
Well, Rod, thank you so much for being with us today. That's Rod West of Entergy, former Brother Martin Crusader, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and now great community leader with some great messages for us. And if you don't have any electricity right now, don't call Rod, because guess what? Entergy makes more money when the electricity is running to your house. So they're trying to get that done as quickly as possible. Thank you, Rod, for being here with us today. We're in the karting center here at NOLA Motorsports Park in Avondale, where they've got some big events coming up this weekend. Check us out at nolamotor.com. This is PRI, Prep Recruiting Insider. We're going to be back after this time out.